can speak from my experience. I became a lifelong anti-war activist right here on these steps, right after 9/11. And it wasn't 9/11, that was 20 years ago. It was when we started being bombarded with lies to invade Iraq. A war on Iraq, let me be specific. Over a million human beings were killed, millions more harmed physically, psychologically, and being displaced as refugees. And of course, we continued invading several other countries afterwards. That disgusted me to my bones. I began actively organizing opposition to almost every U.S. war since, and there's been several. I quickly came to find that virtually all U.S. wars come wrapped in a pack of lies. The U.S.-Israeli war on Palestinians is also based on many lies. They're lying about the causes of the conflict, suggesting this all started last month on October 7th, with Israel being attacked for no reason, and Israel is just some innocent victim. They want us to ignore 75 years or more of well-documented history of ethnic cleansing. They want us to ignore that. They want us to ignore that there's apartheid. They want us to ignore that there's occupation. They want us to ignore that there's a brutal blockade, home demolition, land theft, illegal settlements, war crimes, repeated carpet bombing of civilians. This isn't the first carpet bombing of Gaza. Just in my short political life of 20 years, I'm about 40 years old. Since I've been doing this, I've seen Gaza bombed multiple times. This may be the worst, but it's not the first. And they've also, I've read several books about this, and I'll recommend a couple. One of them is The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Israeli Jewish historian Ilan Pappé. There's many great, beautiful Jewish minds speaking out against this. Hundreds of them were just arrested in D.C. Hundreds of them were arrested in New York City. Norman Finkelstein. There's so many great voices for peace, for justice and peace for Palestine. Let me be specific. We're not calling just for peace. We're calling for justice so we can have peace. Also, I want to say some other crimes, not just the repeated carpet bombings. There's so many. There's hundreds of crimes. Destruction of olive orchards, poisoning of livestock, poisoning of water wells, abuse of checkpoints and roadblocks, and one of the most egregious, the massive sniper massacres of peaceful protesters during the Great March of Return just a couple years ago. Israeli snipers massacred. They shot thousands of people, medics, journalists, children, disabled people, all of them war crimes, clear-cut war crimes. These are unarmed people, unacceptable. The United States did not say anything. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. I've heard it said we should not call this a war as it's a genocide. Indeed, Palestinians have no army, navy, or air force. So yes, this is largely a one-sided massacre of people trapped in what numerous experts call the world's largest open-air prison, or even a concentration camp. The people are not allowed to leave since the blockade of, 2006 or so? People of Gaza are not allowed to leave. They're all trapped. They're hostages. We talk about the hostages that Hamas has taken, a couple hundred or whatever. Everyone in Gaza is a hostage. 2.3 million people are hostages since 2006. Release all the hostages. Release the Israeli hostages, sure, but release the 2.3 million hostages in Gaza too. Let's be consistent. Let's be morally consistent. Let's not have a double standard here. So I would suggest there's a difference of a war, let me be specific, a war between two relatively equivalent militaries and a bully war on a militarily weaker nation. It was a U.S. bully war on Iraq, a U.S. bully war on Libya, on Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Korea, and dozens of other nations. And it's not just invading and bombing people for bullshit reasons of freedom and democracy, the big lie, just like Israel says they're bombing for self-defense. Those are lies. Those are lies. Those are lies. And the U.S. imperialism isn't just bombing and invading. It's economic warfare, sanctions, killing millions, hundreds of thousands to millions of people by starvation sanctions. It's cruel. It's cruel beyond belief. And then coups. We've overthrown dozens of countries since World War II with various coups. And we don't just overthrow dictatorships. We overthrow democracies. We overthrew the democracy in Iran with Mossadegh. There was democracy in Iran. people complain about the Iranian regime now. Well, there was democracy before we overthrew it. And all across Latin America, we've done the same. Chile, we overthrew a democratic leader. Guatemala, we overthrew a democratic leader. And on and on. The hypocrisy is just stupefying, really. And the conflict now is similarly a war on Palestinians. This started 75 years ago with the Nakba, and the ethnic cleansing never stopped.
Nakba continued.
It does.
Yasin was before.
That's right, and Albert Einstein warned us about that massacre in 1948. Albert Einstein, a Jewish genius. Let's celebrate our Jewish geniuses for peace. Albert Einstein wrote a letter with Hannah Arendt, another Jewish intellectual giant, and a bunch of other Jewish brilliant people in 1948 to the New York Times. They warned the American people about this extremist form of Zionism that was taking power with Menachem Begin. I'm probably not pronouncing his name right. He said they were terrorists based on fascist and Nazi principles. And that they were part of a group called the Irgun, a fascist militia that would terrorize Palestinian civilians. And they were the Freedom Party, which became Likud. And Likud is the ruling party in Israel right now. So it has direct roots to terrorist, fascist, Nazi ideology. And Einstein warned Americans. He said, be careful. These people are going to influence your politics. And by God, they did. And so this is not, don't let anybody be confused. There is no anti-Semitism here. This is about political policy of the Israeli government. This is political policy. And so the conflict started 75 years ago, not last month. And here's another good book by a brilliant historian, a Palestinian American, Rashid Khalidi. And the title of his book is The 100 Years War on Palestine, A History of Settler Colonialism and Resistance from 1917 to 2017. So this didn't even just start with the Nakba. It was before it. A lot of it started with the Balfour Declaration in 1917. And that's when the British started participating in the cleansing of Palestine and establishing a supremacist state. It's a supremacist state. And so Rashid Khalidi calls it the war on Palestine. This isn't a war between, it's a war on by powerful governments that are well funded. So make no mistake, though, this is also very much a U.S. war, too. The U.S. has given over $260 billion in foreign military aid to Israel since the Nakba, with the U.S. House of Representatives just now passing another $14 billion to fund this genocidal bombing campaign. Shame, 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 shame. The U.S. has also given massive political support by vetoing over 53 UN resolutions that condemned Israel's many violations of international law. And this is a report from 2001. I'm sure there's several more, probably close to 60 United States vetoes. They just recently vetoed an effort to have a ceasefire. So absolutely, the U.S. government's complicit in everything Israel's doing. The U.S. has enabled Israel to escape all accountability for war crimes, which is encouraging Israel to continue committing them. For decades, the majority of the world has been trying to hold Israel accountable and to create justice for Palestinians. And it's the United States that's the world leader at preventing progress and sustaining Palestinian oppression. So we have a special responsibility as Americans to say no to this. We should all wish and work for peace and for violence to cease, and to really identify and solve the root causes of war, which are overwhelmingly injustices. Justice is the foundation for real peace. As Dr. King said, we must not seek a negative peace or a mere absence of tension, but to seek a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Overwhelmingly, it's Palestinians that have experienced manifold injustices for the past 75 years and beyond. If we're sincere about seeking peace, we must seek justice for a free Palestine. It's really in the best interest for Israelis, too. They're obviously, look what happened to them. This is not good. If you want peace and security, then start treating Palestinians with fairness and rights and equality and dignity. So, I'll finish up soon. Sorry for being long-winded here. Some people dismiss protests like this or small acts we do online, posts we make. But I would argue everything we say has some effect on public opinion, which is the real ruler of all societies. That's why dictators or corporate oligarchs spend immense resources on propaganda to shape public opinion, to manufacture consent, as Noam Chomsky would say. Rulers always need consent to rule, or they will be rapidly removed one way or another. We must withdraw our consent from our rulers that support endless war and endless injustices for Palestinians and so much of our world. A growing number of Americans are frustrated by politicians of both parties, and since they don't represent us on issue after issue, at some point consent must break. Most of us don't have enough money to buy a congressman, but every one of us has some power. We each have a voice in the field of public opinion, and we all have a wide diversity of creative talent we can employ to displace this system of perpetual injustice. Every courageous post we make, every act of resistance and solidarity, every conversation we have with friends or family has some impact, however small, and it all adds up. Yeah. We must raise our voices to call for an immediate ceasefire and a stop to the genocide. We must call for an end to apartheid, occupation, and ethnic cleansing. As Americans, we have a distinct duty to speak out for a stop to our government's massive support of this injustice. We're witnessing massive protests all over the world, and a major national protest is occurring right today in Washington, D.C. I would suggest, based on my experience, I've been to some anti-war protests in D.C., I would not be surprised to see 500,000 people in D.C. today. So, millions of voices are rising up all over the world, in nation capitals all over the world. They're rising up in the streets, and we have now joined them. Let Gaza live and free Palestine. Thank you. The Lebanese American who was admitted to the U of A as a refugee of the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 2006. He's a good friend of mine. He comes to many of our anti-war events. I'm really happy to know him. He's a really great guy. And JP, love you, buddy.
Oh man, thank you guys so much for being here, for doing everything else you do, for understanding that doing nothing is not an option. Let me start with a nice little quote from the late, great Malcolm X, who was assassinated when he decided to take the U.S. government to the International Court for crimes against humanity. He puts it very succinctly. He says, "The Palestinian struggle is not just a cry for justice. It is a blistering battle for the most fundamental human rights that every living soul should inherit by birthright. It's an unyielding resistance against the oppressive, suffocating grip of occupation and the callous denial of the most basic human dignity." He spent his life's work on this universal issue, and I only just started a few years ago. I'm trying to catch up. But what I can add to the conversation is to clarify to everybody watching that this is a movement of love. There's zero hatred here. If you have hatred for anyone, fascists, terrorists, Jews, go home and figure that out. Everyone is a human being, and a lot of them are very confused right now. So it's evident to everyone standing here why Palestine needs to be free. They've experienced the most ridiculous brutality for so long, and as a result, we see foolish, desperate reactions from groups like Hamas. They have no other options. That's why they take the route of violence, which is wrong. And we don't support them in that approach because it won't work. We're here to liberate everybody. Yes. Israel needs us just as much. Yes. They are sick. Yes. They're fooled. You need to reach out and make Israeli friends and remind them that we don't hate them. We want them to heal. Yes. And we want their boots off these necks because that will make them safer. I come from Lebanon, and Lebanon has a shameful role in this story. Christians specifically. Christian militias have exterminated Palestinian refugees. We complain about the refugee population who's not allowed to work, who's not allowed to go to school. They have no options but to be resistance fighters or criminals. And it's not their fault. So we need more understanding. We need more conversations. You have no idea how important your conversations are with your friends and family everywhere. We need unity and healing. So remind people that this is a movement of unity. I've been asked by a recent new Israeli friend of mine, who's a decent human being, he asked me, how do we get our hostages back from Gaza. The answer is not making life harder for the people who have nothing to lose or bombing them indiscriminately. So it's super heartwarming. I see tons and tons of hope. I'm not discouraged. There's Jews everywhere saying, not in our name. There's Israelis risking the same torture as Palestinians to say, I'm not into this.
That's right.
And everyone wants their family to be safe. Everyone wants exactly the same thing when we're being honest. So let's fight this sickness of fascism and supremacism and ignorance with love. It's the only cure. It's more powerful. You turn the other cheek by breaking the cycle of vengeance. There's a lot that can be said, and there's a lot of good speakers coming up. So I love every one of you. I love our enemies. Please keep doing what you're doing as long as it takes. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Our next speaker is a young man named Tyler Corleone. He's a young man from Little Rock who reached out to me, and he told me he stands in solidarity with all oppressed people. And he said his family has ties to the Black Panther Party, I believe in Chicago or something. And he says that makes him feel like he has a duty to speak up. Please give it up for Tyler.
I see amazing faces out here tonight. I just want to say thank you all for coming and speaking out and standing out against this terrible thing that's happening to our brothers and sisters overseas. I have written this small speech. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but I just want to make sure that everyone here is understood and felt in their heart grieving. As we stand here together this morning, may we shed a light for our Palestinian brothers and sisters overseas, for those voices have been overshadowed by sheer disregard of human life. But why must innocent people be at stake? Have we learned nothing from occupying these foreign countries? Nothing good can come of it. Only destruction, tyranny, and a displacement of an entire people, which cannot stand anymore. As an African-American man who is still suffering under the consequences of British imperialism, I cannot stand to see a people uprooted from their birthplace. It makes me sick to my stomach. Where's the morality in this?
Yes.
If our tax dollars will stop funding the war in Israel, the siege will stop tomorrow.
Amen.
If our tax dollars will stop funding the war, there would be no fuel left in the Israeli tanks. There would be no funding, no nothing to be able to continue this apartheid state. This is so, I'm shaking because like, I feel the weight of everyone here, and it's amazing. I just love and I care for everyone here.
You're doing well.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Peace will come only once those despicable war generals and greedy politicians have had their fill, but their appetite is everlasting. Their hunger is immeasurable. Their jaws lock onto every target suitable for a meal and devour without remorse. This is a touchy subject. It's a touchy subject. And the shoes I'm trying to fill right now are too big for me at the moment. But we do what we must when lives are at stake. We do what we must to make our dreams a reality. We do what we must. We do what we must for the liberation of all oppressed people. This burden is too heavy for one person to carry. So this is why we stand here together in solidarity against this tyranny. We march through tyranny and corrupt systems because no one can deny that the Palestinian state belongs to the Palestinian people. I may seem peaceful and collected at the moment, but my fear is that we are shouting upon deaf ears. So this is why we march in front of their face, so they cannot deny us any longer. Thank you.
Next up is a woman named Yazra from Egypt.
Hi everyone. So happy to be here with everyone. I was so jealous whenever I see everyone coming together in DC and New York and all these places. So I'm so happy that it's happening now in Arkansas. I'm so proud of every single person here. And I just want to highlight that if you look around you, you're gonna notice that pro-Palestine protests are always the ones that are diverse. Just remember that. If you look at the other side, it looks really different. And as a change, everyone here is talking about Palestine. I would like to talk about Arkansas for a second. So on April 6th, a resolution passed by a unanimous vote in Arkansas House of Representatives calls on Arkansas to enter into strategic partnership with Israel. It includes as well a strong statement in support of Jewish ties to Judea and Samaria. This is, in the modern days, this is West Bank. And as we all know, by international law and UN and all of this, this is occupied. So this is the response that we received in Arkansas from the Samaria Council chairman. We thank the entire state of Arkansas. We hope the whole world will recognize and understand that a nation cannot be an occupier in its own homeland. So this is the message that Arkansas sent to Israel, that this is their basically homeland. We just gave it to the Israelis as Arkansans. On October 20th, Greek Orthodox Saint Porphyrius Church, the third oldest church in the world, was bombed by the Israelis, killing and injuring dozens. Among the killed are 16 Palestinian Christians. So while in Arkansas we were using the Bible, basically, to give land to Israelis, Palestinian Christians were being bombed in Palestine and in Gaza. As you can guess, this is not the only atrocity that Palestinian Christians were subjected to in Palestine. Same as Muslims over there, they've been harassed and subjected to the same apartheid situation, which made them send an open letter to all the churches across the world saying the following.
Yes.
We are also profoundly troubled when the name of God is invoked to promote violence and religious national ideologies.
Yes.
We watch with horror the way many Western Christians are offering unwavering support to Israel's war against the people of Palestine. Sadly, the actions and double standards of some Christian leaders have gravely hurt their Christian witness and have severely distorted their moral judgment with regards to the situation in our land. Moreover, we categorically reject the myopic and distorted Christian responses that ignore the wider context and the root causes of this war. Israel's systematic oppression of the Palestinians over the last 75 years since the Nakba, the ongoing ethnic cleansing of Palestine, and the oppressive and racist military occupation that constitutes the crime of apartheid. This is precisely the horrific context of oppression that many Western Christian theologians and leaders have persistently ignored, and even worse, have occasionally legitimized using a wide range of Zionist theologies and interpretations. This is their letter that you can go and support on change.org. But back to Arkansas.
For Palestinian Christians.
For Palestinian Christians, yes. Back in Arkansas a few days ago, a Jewish speaker was denied to give a word in University of Arkansas because he was forced to sign a letter that he refused to sign. What was that letter? That letter was asking him to announce or to say basically that he will never boycott Israel.
Unconstitutional.
This is unconstitutional. A few days before that, our representatives approved an RTX plan to develop missiles that are going to be headed to Israel.
Boo.
So, back to Palestine. With Christmas approaching, if you celebrate Christmas, so Merry Christmas in advance. I just want you to remember when you're putting together your Christmas tree, remember that your Palestinian Christians, brothers and sisters that are in occupied Israel are denied to put their Christmas trees. They cannot even do that. Thank you, everyone.
Our next speaker is Ahmed Ba-Meritz. He's originally from Yemen and currently an engineering student at Missouri State University. Is Ahmed here? Please give it up for Ahmed. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for doing the right thing. Thank you for coming to support the children of Palestine that are being brutally murdered as we speak right now. Thank you for coming to support the Palestinian innocent families that have been getting killed with cold blood for about a month now. Thank you for coming here today to support the 2 million Gazans that live in fear, waiting for an Israeli missile or rocket to hit their homes at any time. The people that live in fear now, not just now, from Israel, but also from dying of starvation and even thirst, because Israel controls their food and water supply. That is not a fear that started in the past few weeks. This is a constant fear that Palestinians have been living since 1948, when the genocide really started. What we have to understand is that the genocide did not start in the last month. This genocide has been going for 75 years. Gaza itself is a result of this genocide, where the occupiers kicked Palestinians from all around Palestine and killed some of them and just collected the rest of them to Gaza just for now to start killing them and carpet bombing Gaza, the open air prison, the people that have been living in fear their whole lives, generations after generations living in fear. Can we imagine that? Can any of us even relate to that unless you've been there?
Free, free, free Palestine!
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 And now the same state that claims to be innocent has killed thousands of children and thousands of innocent people. People that had nothing to do with this. This is not about religion. It's not about Islamophobia. It's not about anti-Semitism. It's about being a human being. It's about saying the truth. It's about coming here and protesting and raising your voice, telling people that we do not accept the killing of children. We are here because we want to show the world that we stand with Palestine and that we are going to keep protesting until Palestinians get all their rights back. Please, if you want to put an end to this tragedy, then start by reading, understanding what's really going on. Don't listen to the media, lying media. The media has been lying to us all the time. Educate yourself. And then start by spreading the word. Spread awareness. Teach the people around you. Tell them what the truth is. Tell them that this is about being a human being. This is about empathy. This is about standing for the right thing.
Yes!
And if they disagree, then ask them, when do we really draw the line and make it okay to kill children? Is that even an option?
No!
Could that ever be an option?
No!
Could that be ever an option?
No!
No! This is the answer. And we want to let people know, the world know, that killing children is not an option. It cannot be justified in any case. Whatever happens, you can't kill children.
It's a war crime!
It is a war crime.
It's a felony!
Again, a lot of us know about this now because of raising our voices, because of us coming here, because of us speaking out, because of us posting in our social media accounts. Please don't stop. Never stop until this tragedy ends, until the occupation stops, until all the Palestinians get their rights back. And don't let Israel ever run away with their lies. Expose them. Don't let them run away with that. Don't let them go with that. We are here. We're educated. We know what the truth is. We are gonna say the truth. We are gonna be exposing them. Again, thank you. I can't explain my feelings and seeing all this crowd chanting to free Palestine and being here for the truth. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the right thing. Next up, we have Moja Koff. She's a University of Arkansas professor of English and a Syrian-American poet and novelist. Please give it up for Moja Koff, and especially in this state where it's difficult for professors to speak up, this is really a courageous thing.
This is a time of genocide. We are sick at heart to be witnessing a genocide in our world. And what do you do during a genocide? You dissent. You peacefully dissent. Is nonviolent dissent good for democracy?
Yes.
Yes.
I want us to start, however, by looking down. Look at our feet. Look at the ground beneath our feet. Who was forcibly removed from this ground? Osage people, the Caddo people, the Quapaw people, and indigenous people still live here on the west bank of the Mississippi in ongoing struggle for their access to water, soil, and sovereignty. Palestinians are indigenous people who have the right to water, land, and sovereignty, so we dissent. We dissent peacefully against the dispossession of Palestinians from their land. Indigenous people deserve to live. Cease fire. We dissent against this war. Ori Weisberg is a Jewish-Israeli novelist living in Jerusalem. He posted on 29 October saying that his fellow Jewish Israelis should not wish to be free of Palestinian Arabs because that would be, he said, a genocidal wish. He said, no one should get to decide who exists and who doesn't. So many Jewish Israelis dissent from what their country is doing, and so many in the United States dissent. So we will not accept to be smeared falsely with the label of anti-Semitism. To dissent against Israel is not to be anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic.
Amen.
Thank you, Yusra, for mentioning BDS, and I would like to connect with you afterward. BDS is boycott, divestment, sanctions. It is a non-violent dissent movement since 2005, and it says, show your dissent against Israel by removing your money from Israel. Yet here we are in the state of Arkansas with Act 710, demanding that anyone who does business with the state of Arkansas, including with the University of Arkansas, pledge not to boycott Israel. And as many of you said during Yusra, this is an unconstitutional violation of freedom of speech. We dissent non-violently from this law. We offer peaceful dissent from this law. We have a right to boycott Israel for its human rights abuses. And so I invite you to sign the campus petition. Students and tenured, especially tenured professors, sign the petition. Google it by looking for Act 710 petition. This is a time also, and thank you, JC, for sending love. This is a time to send love to Gaza, to Gaza, to the girls' soccer teams of Gaza, to the 5,000 women giving birth in Gaza by the light of a cell phone right now in these days and these weeks. To the queer Palestinians of Gaza, we love you. Yes, they are there. To the nurses of Gaza, to the medics of Gaza, to the first responders of Gaza, to the feminist organizers of Gaza, to the love you. We love Gaza. We love the land of Gaza. We love the sea of Gaza. We love the lights of Gaza and the farms of Gaza. We love the people of Gaza. I want to tell you about a law in the United States passed in 1997 that prohibits military aid to countries violating human rights. It's called the Leahy Act, Leahy. There are some brave congressmen in D.C. today trying to get this $14.5 billion of aid that was just declared for Israel to commit human rights abuses and war crimes with to be stopped because it violates the Leahy Amendment. This military aid package to Israel is illegal according to the Leahy Act. Support Congress people who are trying to stop this military aid package because it violates our own law in the United States. I want to end with the ask from Gaza is ceasefire now. That's the overall ask that we are hearing from organizers in Gaza. The longer ask is water, medicine, food, electricity, safe zones for civilians, safety for medical facilities. The ask overall from Gaza is for us to use our United States privilege to dissent. This is a time when who else needs your love is that people who are feeling in this university campus, who are feeling alone and isolated. The Arab students were denied a room in the union to even have a meeting to mourn, to grieve. They're all...
Shame to you, man!
Shame!
We stand with untenured professors who are getting harassed and feel like they have their jobs threatened, not being supported, for doing things like hanging a poster saying "from the river to the sea" on their walls. A poster which, as you know, means that from the river, the West Bank, to the sea, Gaza, may all Palestinians be free and have fully equal human rights. Come up to me if you are a tenured professor or you know a tenured professor who would be willing, in solidarity with untenured professors, to hang the poster on their office wall.
Okay, next up we have a surprise guest who just came up to me during the march. His name is Ali Malik, I believe. Please come up, Ali Malik. I think he said he was a former political prisoner. He's gonna give us a poem, I think.
So I want to take a second to decompress for a second. This has been the first time I've spoken in at a public rally since I was incarcerated. So just for a second, can we just take a second, everybody follow my hand and breathe in as I go up. Let's hold that breath and then release it slowly, just because I'm really nervous, so I just want to take a second to decompress. And I'm sure everybody is feeling a lot of emotions right now, so let's just take a moment. So just breathe in with me. And do more if you need. That's just part of self-care. I got it on my shirt today. And I brought this, We Are Life, because part of what happened with me is that I got so caught up in fighting without realizing that, I'm really, really happy I came after a message of, peaceful dissent, because at the end of the day, we are life. This is life. Us trying to form life, not just opposing death. We are really trying to form things for ourselves. And I'm not going to spend too much time on myself. That's a story for another day, and feel free to hit me up. My artist name is Indiglo, Indiglo, 47 before that. That's my Instagram. Feel free to hit me up for anything. But basically, I said the wrong thing at a city council meeting, and it was construed as a threat to police, and so I was raided by the FBI. And I did have a small amount of marijuana in my house. It was like a state misdemeanor amount, but since it was the feds, they gave me a felony. Almost doubled up my sentencing guidelines and put me in prison during the middle of COVID. That was a really, really terrible experience. And all the way along, guards officers, it was clear that it wasn't about marijuana. So, that's where I'm coming from and where I'm speaking from. I'm going to introduce a piece from the third verse of Kendrick Lamar's song XXX. It's just something that I listen to on the way here and listen to often to remember that, the response to our opposition to oppression, even if it's much more brutalistic than perhaps a non-respectable opposition, it's very brutal. But first I'm gonna just perform a little poem by myself real quick. Free Palestine, free Glow, free all my brothers and sisters locked behind them walls. Free yourself, free your mind, free your soul. In this world of constant motion, we seek our own devotion. Too many addicted to potions, stuck feeling so hopeless. Finding balance in the ocean, waves wash away the whole shit. But we're chosen. We gon' swim, we gon' win, we're not just floating. The notion is that we are raw, naturally growing, slowly paying homage to the totem. I'm not no token. This flow is evidence of our home in the rhythm. It's sacred, holy, ancestral sway. Earth grounds us. Truth and proof, roots keep us planted in place. Fire inspires, takes us higher. We can't lose, there's motivation in the flame. Water heals, soothes the pain. Battle scars, then we rise again. Air to think, beautiful creation. Standing tall, you know the same. A different perspective, energy unique. From a scarred soul I speak. Gaza to Ramallah, the people are pushed to the edge. Genocide is on the brink. Palestinian hearts are beating like drums as their mothers and fathers weep. Today I saw a child mangled and charred from the bombs and the motherfucking heat. Excuse my language, sorry. No sympathy for terrorists is what they say in the street. How can you keep your innocence when darkness is all you see? Treat victims as villains and villains as we. So that's a little piece of that. A much more talented poet, Mr. Kendrick Lamar, has this verse, and I think that there's just bars in this that just all over the place. Hail Mary, Jesus and Joseph. The great American flag is wrapped and dragged in explosives. Compulsive disorder, sons and daughters. Barricaded blocks and borders. Look what you taught us. It's murder on my street, y'all street, back street, Wall Street, corporate offices. Banks, employees, and bosses with homicidal thoughts, Joe genocidans in office. We lost Barack and promised to never doubt him again. But is America honest, or do we bask in sin? Pass the gin. I mix it with American blood, then bash him in. You crippin' or you married the blood, I'll ask again. Oops, accident. It's nasty when you set us up, then roll the dice, then bet us up. You overnight the big rifles, then tell Fox to be scared of us. Gang members are terrorists, etc., etc. America's reflections of me. That's what a mirror does.
Hey, next up, we have one more professor, Dr. Ted Swedenberg. He's an emeritus professor at the University of Arkansas of Anthropology and Middle East Studies and a member of Jewish Voice for Peace and Democratic Socialists of America. Give it up for Ted.
I would like you to give it up for Abel, who did amazing work. Good afternoon, friends. Abel introduced me as a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, and I agreed to do so, or that he do so, even though I'm not Jewish, for two reasons. First, because I want to underline here that JVP welcomes non-Jewish members like me. So please consider joining, or at least contributing money to the organization, jvp.org. Second, I want to stress how critical their organizing work has been since October 7th. Other people have mentioned this, but they, along with another like-minded Jewish organization called If Not Now, send them money too, have occupied the U.S. Capitol, shut down Grand Central Station in New York City, 30th Station in Philadelphia, stopped traffic in Durham, North Carolina, sat in at numerous Senate offices, endured numerous arrests and organized other actions, all demanding immediate ceasefire in Gaza, demanding that Gaza be allowed to live. Here I have a list of 2,913 Palestinian children killed as of October 26th. This was posted online by Jewish Voice for Peace a week ago. A couple days ago, or a few days ago, someone noted, they did the calculation, to stand here and read all of the names of the children killed in Palestine, which today totals 3,700, would take 6 hours, probably 7 hours now, right? I'm going to read just a couple names.
Thank you.
Nur Wissam Amin Hasuna, Huda Muhammad, age 9, Huda Muhammad Fadi Hamid Hasuna, age 8, Da Wissam Amin Hasuna, age 7, Yazan Muhammad Ali Hasuna, age 5, Sarah Bilal Muhammad Hasuna, age 3, Subhi Hamdan Subhi Hasuna, age 1. That's only 5 or 6 of the 25 Hasunas killed in Gaza before the 26th of October. I want to mention a couple other names too. Liat and Aviv Atzili of Kibbutz Nir Oz. Liat Atzili is the niece of a dear friend of mine, former Stanford University professor who would be here with us today if you lived here. She and her husband were kidnapped on October 7th and are still being held hostage. I pray for their release. I've spent a lot of time in the occupied territories, including living in the West Bank for a year and a half, 1984, 1985. I've made 3 visits to the occupied Gaza Strip. In 2008, I taught a summer course at Beersheba University of the Negev in South Israel. I have several Israeli friends and colleagues who've lost friends and family members, civilians, all of them, in the assault of Hamas, horrific assault of Hamas on October 7th. And they would all be with us here today if they could be. They agree with what we're doing. And I know many Palestinians who've lost family in the ongoing Israeli assault on Gaza. The family that hosted me on my last visit there have lost their homes and neighborhoods in the bombing. And since then, they are moving from place to place, latest information I have, staying in very cramped quarters under very difficult conditions, trying to find a space of safety. I mourn for all the dead and wounded, for those families, those whose families and friends are departed, and for all those suffering through violence. Back to that list of murdered children. The source for the names is the Gaza Ministry of Health. Our president has cast doubt on the casualty figures provided by the ministry, claiming they are not reliable because the ministry operates under the auspices of Hamas, the rulers of Gaza. The ministry was there before Hamas was there in Gaza. Let me assure you, this list is not a fiction. For numerous human rights organizations and media outlets have found that their numbers are highly reliable. Don't believe President Genocide Joe, who would question those numbers. All of you know, you wouldn't be here today if you didn't believe that our administration is unstinting and unwavering in its support for the Israeli state and its onslaught on Gaza, which the UN, keep this in mind, we're talking about genocide, the UN says, United Nations, that this attack puts the Palestinians under grave risk of genocide. Everybody says, what are you doing? You're just making this shit up. No, it's the UN. You got the UN backing you on this. Total U.S., somebody said this, total U.S. financial support, $250 billion since 1947, most of it since 1967. Illegal military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, all according to international law. You know all this. Last thing to say about Israel, U.S. and Israel. 80% of the bombs being dropped on Gaza, killing all those children, close to 10,000 people, supplied by the United States.
Shame!
Now we're going to shame on Arkansas. Okay? We're going to shame on Arkansas. People might think it's distant and far away. You know, and honestly, most of your friends don't even know where Gaza is. They don't know where Gaza is. but we're right there. First, the white phosphorus bombs being dropped on Gaza. Bombs that set buildings on fire and burn human flesh down to the bone, considered by human rights organizations to be illegal under international law. Produced where? Pine Bluff Arsenal in Arkansas. Second, and by the way, in England, they're shutting down these corporations that are selling weapons to Israel. If we were closer to Pine Bluff. Second, our governor has just, this is mentioned, our governor has just announced U.S. defense contractor RTX Corporation, formerly called Raytheon, and Israel's Rafael Advanced Defense System will build a facility in East Camden, Arkansas to produce Hammer missiles for Israel's Iron Dome weapon system. Third, there's more. The Treasury of the state of Arkansas last week increased its investment in Israel bond holdings by $10 million to $57 million, boosting our investments in military occupation. Fourth, the Arkansas Legislative Council on October 21st approved a resolution sponsored by 116 state legislators, both Democrat and Republican, that expressed vigorous support for the security and survival of the state of Israel, condemned Hamas, and called upon law enforcement to remain vigilant in protecting Israeli Americans, Jewish Americans, and supporters of Israel. It was a voice vote, no dissent, meaning that all of the Democrats who represent us in Northwest Arkansas went along with it. There's no resolutions before the Arkansas legislature. No resolutions before the legislature calling for what we are calling for here today. Supporting Palestinians, caring about Palestinian lives, stating that we need to be vigilant to protect Palestinian Americans, Arab Americans, and Muslim Americans. Completely one-sided. Fifth, this won't surprise you, our Senator Tom Cotton stated on October 15th, as far as I'm concerned, Israel can bounce the rubble in Gaza. I mean, you just go do it.
Shame.
And he went on to blame Hamas. Hamas is at fault for any Palestinians injured by Israeli forces. Sixth, we're one of 35 states that passed a law discouraging the boycott of Israel, and my colleague mentioned that. And then there's the resolution that our Egyptian friend mentioned that names the West Bank, Judea, and Samaria. No Palestinian would ever call it Judea and Samaria, and they never did. And our legislature gains to do this. And there's so much. It's really important that we're here today. I salute all of you for being here. I have an obligation. I have a debt to pay for all the hospitality Palestinians have shown me. Y'all are much better than me. You're doing it out of your kindness of your heart. For me, it's just an obligation. It's essential that we're here today, that the people of Gaza living under constant threat and bombardment feel they have the support from peace-loving people in the rest of the world. It means a great deal to them. It is also essential for us to be here to show Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims who live in our community that they are not alone, not isolated at this time of heightened anti-Palestinian sentiment and actions. Like, it's very scary for people who are from those backgrounds, and it's good that we're here with them. Community and solidarity are essential at this moment as well, because many in this country are being silenced and intimidated and fired for expressing the same views we're expressing here. Some of my colleagues from DSA who have jobs are wearing masks because if they get photographed, they could lose their jobs, right? That's the conditions we live in. I just read something in The Nation. I urge you all to read it. It's an article by James Bamford, B-A-M-F-O-R-D, The Nation. It's online. And it calls to mind that what we're involved in is a war of information. And the war of information, especially in this country, more than anything, any other country in the world, the war of information is as important as what is going on in Palestine and Israel. the struggles there, right? It's a war of material struggle there, and it's a war of information here. And if we can change the information and the narratives and the stories that are being told, then our government here and our media would not be doing these terrible things that they're doing, right? They would be supporting the people that deserve support. It's really critical. I think we have to recognize and realize that what we're doing is extremely important, right? These demonstrations and everything we can do is really important. Our politicians and our media do not accurately represent the views of the U.S. public. We get fed massive disinformation, and still the U.S. public, in its majority, supports a ceasefire for Gaza, not a pause.
No.
Not a pause to let more people be ethnically cleansed. A ceasefire. Let Gaza live. Stop the killing now.
We have someone from Palestine that I'm very happy that we found someone. Her name is Amanda Ashraf Arafat. She's a Palestinian-American chef, baker, and community organizer. She was born in Gaza, and her father's entire lineage hails from Gaza. She's deeply connected to this issue as her brother and his family live in Gaza, along with almost her entire extended family.
Firstly, I'd like to say how grateful I am to you all for being here, using your voices and using what you have, because this Palestinian experience is a lonely one. I've been Palestinian for 29 years and have never been able to fill a room with people aware of my people and the Israeli occupation of my homeland before, let alone a march. I'm not going to talk to you about the statistics and the current death toll numbers. It will be higher by the time we all go home today. I will not talk to you about the number of children stuck under rubble, because that number may increase by the time we all go home today. But I want to open a window into this experience for you today, because Palestinians are not just numbers. We were not just valuable when our deaths are in the thousands. I was born in Gaza, and the occupation started marking itself on my life before I was born. This is not a unique statement to make. This is true of all Palestinians, both within and outside of Gaza and Palestine. One of the first stories of the occupation I memorized was the break-in night. On this night, IDF soldiers broke into my young parents' home long after midnight when everybody was asleep. My mother was heavily pregnant with me at the time. They ransacked and destroyed the apartment. No one tells you this, but it stands to reason that the people who are violently raiding your life have no qualms with pocketing your valuables at the same time. Knowing this, my father very discreetly placed his cash savings, their entire savings as a young couple at that time, in the pocket of a jacket and offered it to my mother for warmth, with no time to explain. My mother declined the jacket. The IDF found the jacket in his hands, along with their savings, and confiscated it, leaving them heavily pregnant with 2 toddlers in a ransacked apartment with no money. How do you think this sort of action impacts future generations of Palestinians, even in an incident where no one is killed? When I was 9, we were living in Egypt. We got the news that my uncle had died while we were at a family friend's for dinner. My uncle Amjad and a bus full of others, fathers, uncles, brothers, and loved ones were all struck by an Israeli missile on their way home from Friday prayers. He had a wife and 5 children. It wouldn't have made the news. About a year later, his youngest daughter, my cousin Hela, died during a period of Israeli bombardment. She was 5. It wouldn't have made the news. Can you imagine the re-traumatization, the cycle of horror for his remaining children and my aunt? About 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to travel back to Palestine with my family. I got to look through my Uncle Amjad's things, his notebooks of handwritten poetry and prose, and all of his hand-painted oil paintings that my grandparents keep. The media paints a violent narrative of Palestinian men, Currently, we're only hearing about the women and children. This is the appeal at your heart. But these men that they're taking away from our culture every day, people with so much depth and ambition and talent that we'll never know about, forced into the permanent position of survivor. We'll never know who Hela could have been. I don't know what dreams she had for her life or her future. She's not even a part of the massive current death toll of Palestinian children. Simply one of the many casualties of this war, right? But I know you know that's not right. It wasn't right for Amjad, for Hela. It's not right for anyone. The Palestinian people are a flower begging to blossom, and they are living their lives suffocated under the foot of ethnic cleansing. Please be changed by this moment. This moment that has lasted 75 long years for us Palestinian people, please carry this with you as we do these stories, these violent traumas forced upon us. This is a fraction of my experiences because I don't want to keep you here for long. I'm not going to tell you about my grandmother who is facing a complete blackout of all of her medications in this time. I'm not going to tell you about my niece and nephew who are becoming sick from poor conditions and being faced by the elements with a lack of food and water, and their parents are helpless. My brother is helpless to get the medication. He is helpless to be a father in this moment. Demand a ceasefire. Call your representatives. Become a living hell for their phone lines. Become a living hell for anyone who tries to normalize this. Don't stop speaking on this, not until Palestine is free, and God willing, from the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Thank you.
I think we're at our final speaker here. He worked 5 years in Gaza with the United Nations Works and Relief Agency and with the Palestinian organization Adamir, which represented Palestinian political prisoners in the occupation military jails. Please give it up for David.
So, my name's DJ, and my family and I call Northwest Arkansas home now. Good? So, I lived in Palestine for 5 years. And you know, those vetoes by the US that people were talking about in the Security Council, I was in the room for many of those. And what I saw, you know, my first job related to Palestine was with the UN Relief and Works Agency. And my first duty as part of that was negotiating with the Israelis to allow in building materials into Gaza after Operation Protective Shield in 2014. What quickly became clear to me was that the Israelis had no desire to allow the Palestinians in Gaza to rebuild the water treatment plants or the power plants that stay offline to this day. Later on in my career, I worked representing Palestinian prisoners in the military jails and the military courts. And what became clear to me very quickly was the system is a dragnet to scoop up Palestinians for as little as possible, for as long as possible, to ensure that no one raises their head and no one organizes any form of meaningful resistance. Through that time period, I saw the rise and the fall of the Great March of Return, which started as a few people walking towards the fence in Gaza and grew to thousands, people invoking the name of Martin Luther King and Gandhi. I remember the day very clearly where the Israelis decided to end it. They took their rifles, they lowered them down, and they fired into crowds of people. They killed 50 in an hour. We were keeping tally in our office like it was a game. Thousands were injured. And finally, what I saw was, what I saw was my friends in Gaza being squeezed under a continuing siege. I even helped the Palestinian Authority with their lawfare approach, attempting to use international mechanisms to secure a just cause. What I saw with all of this was that the occupation government has no desire for a just cause. It doesn't even see the Palestinians as humans, because if it did, it wouldn't be able to kill them wholesale the way it is. It sees Palestinians as a problem to get rid of, as animals to put in a cage, to force off the land. And you know, occupation, we've heard about the history, we've heard about the families, we've heard about the lives. Occupation is not a moment. Occupation is a process. Occupation is laws and regulations that come together in a web to ensure that the indigenous people of Palestine are pushed off eventually. So, you know, here we stand on this stolen land ourselves with our leaders, political, moral, whatever, intellectual, wholesale providing support for the massacre of people, for the wholesale genocide of a group of people. And here we stand as the free and just and moral people of the world. We must loudly reject this. We must unambiguously stand against this massacre. Bassel al-Araj, I don't know if anyone knows him, he was a Palestinian intellectual. I remember the night he was killed in Ramallah. The bullets rang out until the early morning. He said that to judge, or to be able to judge a person's morality, all you needed to do was know where they stand on the issue of Palestine. So where do we stand? That's the question we need to ask. And when those politicians, those bought and paid for Democrats, the warmongering Republicans, when they come around and ask for your support, and they ask for you to forget what they've done here, remember the dead children, remember the dead people, remember the lives destroyed, remember their cowardice, remember their bloodletting. So, قلنا من لازم نوقف وندعم القضية حتى النصر. عشان لأنه دم أطفال غزة راح يكون على أيد السياسيين حتى نهاية العالم. But not on our hands. No blood will be on our hands if we stand up and if we speak and we do not forget what they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. You're wonderful people.